everyone. Today we're going to discuss factoring companies and how to select a good one. There are four very important factors when selecting a factoring company. We're going to discuss them one by one and see what the importance of each factor is. Factor number one is obviously the rate. Everyone is looking for the lowest rate possible when they're selecting a factoring company. Somebody charges 3% of the invoice amount, somebody charges 1.9, somebody's charging 5. Obviously, the lowest the rate, the better it is for you, but do not solely select the factoring company on the rate alone. The reason for that is because the other factors can affect your bottom line just as much as the rate would. And that brings us to factor number two, and that is reserve. Percentage of the reserve is very important. For example, you may be offered a low rate of, let's say, 1.5% with 10% reserve. That means that the factoring company, even though they just charge you 1.5% of the invoice amount, they're going to keep 10% of your invoice in the reserve. And that can affect your bottom line quite a lot, because on a $10,000 that you may factor with them, $1,000 will be sitting in the reserve account. And yes, you will eventually get it back, but it can tie up a good amount of cash for you, which is not necessarily beneficial to your company. So you want to find this factoring company with the lowest reserve possible, or preferably no reserve at all. So for example, if you can pay, let's say, 3% and get funded on 97% with no reserve, it's probably better than paying 1.5% and having 10% sitting in the reserve somewhere. So that is number two. Now we're going to go to number three, which is recourse or no recourse. The recourse means that if factoring company will not get paid on your invoice for some reason, they will charge this amount back to you. That can present a problem, because sometimes something may get billed, they send out the invoices, and then 2 months later you learn that some piece of paper was missing, and now you cannot find it, and you're getting into a lot of problems, and obviously the factoring company will want you to pay them back that amount, and you're going to have to be sorting it out with the broker. So it can create a lot of potential problems. With non-recourse, once factoring company funded the invoice for you, that's it. If they don't get paid, that's not your problem, and obviously that lowers the risks for you. On the other hand, for the non-recourse, factoring company will try to charge a higher percentage rate. So they may offer you something like 2.5% for recourse funding, and maybe 4% or 5% for a non-recourse. So that's something for you to consider. Again, ideally, you want to find a deal where you can get the non-recourse financing and at the same time the lowest rate possible. Now, let's go to the factor number four. This one is being very often overlooked, and that is terms of your contract with the factoring company. One of them is how long do you have to factor with them? Are you tied up for a particular amount of time? How difficult will it be for you to get released from the contract if you're not satisfied with the service? So, just an example. Ideally, you want to have flexible terms. Let's say a 30-day notice. If you're not satisfied, you provide 30-day notice. You terminate the contract with one factoring company and go to another. That is your ideal situation. The reason it's important for you to read the contract is because you can get into a problem, which I have seen with some of our clients, where they sign up obviously not reading the contract, and they're not happy with the factoring company, and when they go to terminate, they're being told that unfortunately they have a contract for 1 year, and unless the client gives the factoring company a 30-day notice prior to expiration, it is automatically renewed. And any other time client wants to breach that contract, they have to pay something like $5,000 or $10,000. So that is a very, very, very bad proposition. You're tied up and you're going to have a hard time changing factoring companies if you're not happy. So you need to read the terms of your contract. So now let's recap what we just discussed. There are 4 factors. Rate, where you're trying to logically find the lowest possible rate you can pay. Second is the reserve, where again you're trying to have as low of a reserve as possible or no reserve at all. Number 3 is recourse, and no recourse preferably is a no recourse situation for you, so this way you are not liable for any unpaid bills later on. And you got to read the terms of your contract to make sure you're not being tied up to a long-term agreement with penalties when you try to terminate it. These are the 4 factors to consider. There are many, many factoring companies out there. Just shop them, ask them the right questions, and just analyze the options you have and pick the one that is the most suitable for your business. We hope this video will be helpful to you, or potentially you can advise your clients as to what they should be looking for when they are signing up with the factoring companies. And we will see you next time.